Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another Facebook Live this Thursday morning. We all know that lately it's been pretty cold, sub-zero temperatures, and that's the high a lot of times. So, and these temperatures are probably going to continue for another week or so. So I know it's really tough for us when it's this cold, but for a lot of animals, it's important to have this cold season in the wintertime for hibernation. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. What do animals do in the wintertime? Where do they spend their time in the winter? So I'm going to talk a little bit about a few of the common animals in our area with unique hibernation patterns and unique ways to spend the winter. So I have a few images up here on the screen. And this is something we talked about last time when we were at Wapello. This is a layer here of snow, and a lot of animals live underneath the snow right here. This is called the Subnivian Layer. So animals like mice, these are little mice in here in the snow layer, they will make little tunnels under the snow and kind of hang out in there. And a lot of times they're closer to the ground level. And other animals that will be in this Subnivian layer are like grouse. This is a bird. Not everybody knows what a grouse is. A grouse is basically a bird that's about the size of a chicken, and it will dive into a soft snowbank and kind of nestle itself in there and spend up to about 16 hours in one of these snowbanks. So this is a bird that does not migrate, and they use this snowbank cavity to help insulate them from the wind and keep them warmer, as well as hide them from predators. Other things that spend their time in the Subnivian layer under the snow, besides mice and grouse, are weasels. Weasels will kind of spend their time in some of the Subnivian layer closer to the ground as well. But a lot of times they'll kind of have a channel that goes up into a brush pile as well. So this snow layer is really important for anything that is living beneath the ground in the wintertime and within the snow layer also. So if you're tired of the snow layer this year, remember it's not bad for everybody. Even ask a farmer. A lot of times if you grow your own food, you become aware that those hard temperatures like this, if you don't have that snow layer to help insulate the ground, those hard freezes will really affect any seeds that you planted last fall. So the snow layer is very important. So now you might recognize these tracks here. We talked a lot about this a couple weeks ago when we were out of Wapello. These here tracks are tracks of a rabbit, and you can see they're kind of going back into the thicket area over here. Rabbits, they will spend their time in brush piles or thicker vegetative areas in the wintertime. So this kind of thicker brush pile, it helps protect them from predators, helps protect them from the harsher winds. Rabbits don't truly hibernate all winter. They stay pretty active. That's why we see a lot of their tracks all winter. But they, at nighttime, when it gets really cold, they will slow down quite a bit. They're a lot less active in the wintertime. So rabbits, along with other rodents, have a layer of fat on the back of their neck called brown fat. And it's basically a storage of energy that they can draw from throughout the winter to help keep themselves warm and survive the colder temperatures. So in the wintertime, a lot of times the rabbits are eating things like twigs and buds and bark from small saplings. So you see a lot of their nibbling marks on some of the twigs and trees around brush piles and thickets. So rabbits are not true hibernators, similar to, if you've ever seen this before, this is a leaf cluster. It's a nest way up in a tree. You can see a lot of these in trees right now. And, you know, you might think that a bird made this nest, but these are actually made by squirrels.
What? No way.
So squirrels make these nests way up in the top of these trees. And when the leaves are not on the trees, like this time of year, you can really see a lot of these little nests up at the top of the trees. So those are squirrel nests, and that's where they're hanging out. Gray squirrels and fox squirrels a lot of times. in our area. And so this helps protect them from some of the larger predators on the ground when they're up there in the tree. And they're really good at climbing. Everybody knows that about squirrels. And another thing that squirrels are doing this time of year, they're not really hibernating true hibernation like they're similar to rabbits, where they will stay somewhat active, but not as active. But in this time of year, February, March, and April, this is when they're starting to have their babies. So in those nests, when you look up in those trees, just think of there's all these little pink babies starting to be born right about now. So February is kind of the earliest part of the birthing season. Squirrels will actually do this twice a year. They'll do this around this time of year until April. And then they will have another birthing season going from August, September, and October. So a little bit later in the year, you can expect to see even more little young squirrels running around.
We have a question.
Okay.
From Tim. He'd like to know, is it one squirrel per nest?
Usually it's a couple squirrels. Sometimes it's one, but usually a pair will occupy the nest. Sometimes they will still have their offspring from the previous season. So they kind of do keep each other warm, but sometimes it is one. They won't really stay in large numbers in the nest. I'd say somewhere between 1 and 3, something like that.
So maybe a mating pair?
A mating pair, and sometimes some offspring from the previous breeding season too. Yeah. So squirrels, as pesky as they can be, it's a really cool part of the ecosystem around us. Now, this is a different kind of a little rodent. These are a ground squirrel. So this is a 13-line ground squirrel, and this is a chipmunk. So they're totally different species. Both of them live in our northern Illinois and Driftless region area. These little critters, they will spend their winter underground. They have a little burrows underground, or sometimes under a log or within a log in a cavity. And they are true hibernators. They will sleep all winter. It's not true sleep, but they will actually spend about 250 days in hibernation. So that's a pretty good portion of the year in hibernation. And they will enter this state called torpor, which is it's a physiological state that where their body will lower their metabolism, their heart rate lowers, their breathing rate lowers, and it's a way for them to conserve energy throughout the winter while they're hibernating. So this torpor is very important for these chipmunks and 13-line ground squirrels. So since their food source is not available this time of year, they really have to conserve as much energy as possible. So that's where these guys are hanging out, way underneath the ground, kind of in their little burrows or sometimes underneath logs. So, and they are true hibernators.
Maureen is asking about groundhogs.
Oh, groundhogs. Oh yeah, groundhogs will hibernate underneath ground as well. So a groundhog is a lot bit bigger actually. You see them in more short grass ecosystems. They will hibernate underground. Sometimes though, you do see them a little bit in the winter time. I see some of their tracks kind of in and around their little holes and dens and things. But they will hibernate and stay really inactive in the winter as well. And when spring comes, you can see them really kind of soaking up the sun and munching on all the nice green things that are coming up too. So here's another animal that we have in our area that you don't really think about. What in the world do toads and frogs do in the wintertime? Well, they spend their time underground. So, and they have this really unique adaptation where, since a lot of times they will spend their time near a body of water, since they're, their young are tadpoles, so they need to be near a body of water. They will actually, to prevent themselves from freezing completely, here's a couple pictures, they have this extra glucose levels in their blood that prevent their blood from freezing, or their cells from freezing. So it acts as like a natural antifreeze. So they have this natural antifreeze in their body that prevents them from completely freezing. So it's very cool and unique. Frogs and toads are really cool to see in the early springtime. I can't wait till late March, early April when all the frogs start peeping and croaking. It's very fun to be around frogs and toads that time of year. And how about snakes? What do they do? So snakes are spending time underground as well. And they will spend time in huge colonies underground. This picture is actually of some garter snakes, but it's pretty common for snakes of different species to occupy the same den. So snakes, garter snakes and fox snakes, for example, they could actually be hanging out in the same den. And they do this interesting thing where, to keep everybody in the group warm, they will rotate the individuals on the outside, will go towards the inside, and the individuals on the inside will go to the outside, and kind of keep rotating to keep everybody at an optimal temperature. Remember, snakes and toads and frogs are cold-blooded animals, so they really rely on their environment to help regulate their body temperature. They don't have, they're not endotherms like us. They don't produce their own body heat like us. They really have to rely on their environment in order to keep themselves warm. So that's why in the springtime you see them basking in the sun and kind of out in the daylight. So snakes are really cool to see in the springtime. I see them a lot of times on the side of the road, on the shoulder, kind of hanging out in the sun, or on top of rocks or logs, on top of a bluff. So it's really cool to see snakes. That means that, they're trying to warm up their bodies and get ready for the warmer summer season. So snakes are always really cool. And remember, if you see a snake in the wild, they are going to be more afraid of you than you are of them. And the best thing to do is just to leave them alone. You see a snake, just say hi and walk on by. Okay, how about turtles? What in the heck are they doing? So turtles are also very interesting. You can see these painted turtles are underwater. And this is a muddy bank here that they actually spend their winter dug into the side of this muddy bank. They dig in kind of head first into a muddy bank, and their little tails and their bottom is kind of right sticking out of the bank a little bit. And that's where they will spend the winter. So the interesting thing about turtles in the winter is that they will actually breathe, not through their lungs. They will actually breathe through their backside. So kind of their anus. They will exchange oxygen in that cavity in order to keep themselves alive all winter while they hibernate. It's very interesting adaptation. And sometimes this is a cool picture of a snapping turtle underneath the ice. You can see the size of the snapping turtle relative to the guy sitting on the ice. You can actually see turtles swimming underneath the ice. A lot of times in the early spring, everybody's starting to come out of hibernation, and you can see what's going on underneath the ice. Birds. Some birds are flying south for the winter. That's where they go in the wintertime. Some birds will fly in a V shape, like geese, or ducks, or pelicans will fly in a V. A lot of birds will fly in a V to go south, and different species will go different areas in the world. We could have a whole program just on bird migration alone. And some birds, like the red-winged blackbird, they kind of travel in these huge flocks like this. And it's really cool to see this during the migration season when they look like a ribbon across the sky. And they're just kind of like riding the wind and traveling south for the winter or north for the summer. So it's really cool to see the red-winged blackbirds and a lot of the other birds that will travel in huge flocks like this. And how about our larger predators? Our larger predators, like the fox, the red fox, or the bobcat, or the coyote. All three of these are native to the Joe Davis County in northern Illinois, whole driftless region area, and they're found pretty commonly actually in this area. These guys stay active all winter. So each of them has what is called a den, and each of their dens looks a little different and is in different kind of ecosystems, but they will continue to hunt their prey all winter long and stay active all winter. So there's just different food sources available at different times of year, and they have adapted to those different ecosystem components over a long period of time. So that's just a few of the animals that are in our northern Illinois and driftless region ecosystems, and that's kind of how they spend their winter. There's a lot more of information that we could probably go on about this for a long time. If you have a trail cam, it's always fun to see what's around your house, or maybe you have a bird feeder nearby, and you can see all the little tracks underneath your bird feeder, or the squirrel tracks running up and down the trees. There's a lot of cool things you can see in the winter time. So if you guys have questions for me, feel free to type them into the comments section. And I hope you guys can join us next week. I want to thank our sponsors, the First Community Bank of Galena, Apple River State Bank. They've been great sponsors.
We do have a question.
Okay, great.
Holly's asking about possums.
Oh, possums. Possums will spend the winter in the cavity. I've seen possums out in the wintertime sometimes when it's a little bit warmer, but they sleep most of the winter. A lot of times in cavities of trees or logs. They're kind of stuck in a little warm cavity, similar to like a mink or a weasel would. So they are kind of like more of a woodland area or edge habitat, right on the edge of woodland sometimes. So possums are another really common animal in this area.
Tim is asking about wolves.
Wolves. So wolves are native to this area, but they have been extirpated, which basically means they're extinct from this area. They're not extinct all over the world, but just in our area. So they have been extirpated from the ecosystems here. So we don't find them here anymore. Every once in a while, you might see like some of these animals that have been extirpated. Like last summer, we saw a bear wander through Joe Davis County. Remember that? So, but wolves, we don't really see them in this area, but wolves are kind of the same habit as like the fox or the coyote. They will stay active all winter, and wolves will hunt. If you go up north in northern Wisconsin and northern Minnesota, they'll hunt even moose or elk or deer, so kind of some of those larger hooved animals. So yeah, there's a lot of cool things to learn about how these animals spend the winter time. Winter is really important for them. Hibernation. Imagine if you didn't get a good sleep at night. So if an animal's not able to hibernate, that means that they're using up all of their energy reserves, staying awake, and in the wintertime there's no food available. So if they're not able to hibernate, there's a good chance that they won't survive. So this cold season where their body is triggered to stay in that hibernation state is very important for them. They've kind of adapted to this ecosystem over a very long period of time, and when ecosystems change too quickly, they're not able to adapt as fast as ecosystems change. So winter is important. If you guys have any more questions for us, feel free to type them into the comment section, and we can even come around later on and answer your questions. Thanks for joining us today. Take care.